When is the last time that you thought about Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron? I'm willing to bet it was either a very quick, neat, in reaction to the IP getting a reboot back in 2017, or maybe like me when you learned this film wasn't actually just called Spirit nearly 20 years after its release. Yo, how goes it? I am usually known around the YouTube space as Plus Ultraman or just Plus, and I'm very pleased to announce my participation in the fourth massive open invitation platform-wide collaboration hosted by Nando V Movies. We should all be familiar with the format by now. Nando chooses an open-ended prompt and creates a playlist that other creators can add to. I sadly missed out on the opportunity to give my take on a marvelous, excellent, and villainous scene, so now given the opportunity to talk about one musical scene, I have jumped at the chance. I'm sure like a lot of my contemporaries participating, the choice of what to actually talk about was fairly hard to make, as your mind likely jumps to either something so popular you know someone else will cover it, or you, like I did the first 3 times, overthink for so long that the trend basically dies out by the time you actually do make up your mind. But I think the advantage here over the first 3 times is that music as a focus is a super broad prompt, because just about everyone has seen a film or show that finds a way to use music, whether diegetic or non, licensed or original, in ways that have really left impressions on us. Spirit was a film I didn't instantly think of, but once I did, I was certain I wanted to speak about it, as I could honestly talk about the entire film's use of music, even if it's pretty late 90s tinged and admittedly kinda corny. The film was released when I was only 2 years old, but I think that it has always spoken to me on much more significant levels than just nostalgia or the fact that it was one of the last traditionally animated films I ever watched as a child. For instance, my dad passed down to both me and my older sister, who helped me out a lot in wearing out our DVD of the film, a really passionate and genuine love for animals and our natural environment as a whole. And even more specifically, he is both a horseman who is very inspired by the likes of people like the first black cowboy Bill Pickett, and someone who hails from a lineage with very strong and proud Native American and African American ties. Something pretty important to the film's setting and themes, as it's a period piece set in the late 19th century at the height of the Manifest Destiny period of the newly independent United States expansion into the West. This is only really important in the context of recognizing that a very explicit analogy in the film is the use of horses as tools or slaves, or the fact that they are very much likened to indigenous people in general. The animators would even frequently go the extra mile to make sure to show these creatures as being as expressive as possible, to show the really complex range of emotions such an issue would inspire in one. Because a horse, even if somewhat poorly narrated by Matt Damon, is our protagonist, and it's really important we sympathize with them. This finally brings us to the actual scene we'll be talking about. At the end of the film's first act, after sacrificing himself to ensure the rest of his herd doesn't share the same fate, Spirit is captured by wranglers who take him back to a US-controlled fort, where he is sold to be broken and used as a tool, just as he's been recently exposed to other horses being used as. This journey is scored by the song You Can't Take Me, which is performed by Bryan Adams. Mileage may vary on how you feel about the additions of his songs when they technically interrupt the awesome soundtrack made by the GOAT Hans Zimmer, but this song stands out among the other vocal tracks to me, and it fits so perfectly that later this song proves to be Spirit's main theme, as its lyrics had hinted at. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. Why is this song so fitting, other than the amazing visuals of Spirit being dragged across some really breathtaking terrains and struggling the entire time, as a thunderstorm perfectly syncs up with the chorus? Or the admittedly somewhat edgy and vague lyrics? Or is it the fact that the scene concludes with an introduction to the film's main protagonist and does one of my favorite things any media can do with a character theme by having the villain abruptly stop it for the audience viewing it non-diegetically with an action that causes diegetic noise? All that is great, but no, I think this scene is so perfect to talk about because it perfectly puts you in the same mindset as Spirit, and without the need for more exposition by Matt Damon. You could either cut all the sound off completely and still perfectly understand what's going on and what emotions are being felt by which characters, or you could go the other route and turn the visuals off and simply listen to the song with a few sound effects added, and you pretty much get that same effect with near the same accuracy. We are supposed to feel rebellious, angry, and angst-filled, as if someone is trying to break our spirits along with this cartoon horse, since that was the actual thought process behind the entire terminology and ideology of breaking a horse. You strip it of its autonomy and will to disobey you, which in turn ties back to those deeper themes about westward expansion and freedom. This is also how we tie back into the movie's ending, as after the Colonel stops "You Can't Take Me" near the film's beginning, the song and thus Spirit's theme isn't recognized and allowed to play out until it's been thoroughly proven Spirit truly is untamable. That would also seem why the last third of the song is so much more triumphant than the first two, as the angst we felt alongside Spirit is now replaced with the exhilaration of knowing one truly is free. Though this choice at the end can seem a bit yikesy, since it almost comes off as if in this story where our protagonists, who in this context are very much persecuted and oppressed indigenous people, have to receive permission or recognition from their oppressor to obtain freedom. If you look at it through the lens that this is the natural continuation of the first time the song has been played, the implication is a bit different. The Colonel doesn't let Spirit and Little Creek go because he is merely impressed with them for jumping the canyon. He does so because he is pretty much the one who has been broken in this situation. We don't see him or any other settlers again as the film concludes. And even though that would seem pretty typical for a happy ending in a children's movie, in my opinion, it also works with a slightly more mature yet still extremely idealistic reading that land, animals, and people are not just things to be taken or broken for the sake of someone's ambitions, but are themselves unique individual wonders that should be respected and work to be understood, lest you squander, impede, or destroy the amazing things they offer in their own natural and untamed states. I also think this is why our favorite cartoon horse isn't named until the end of the film by Little Creek, as it matches up with the lyric of "Don't judge a thing till you know what's inside it," as he even says,
"Take care of her, Spirit, who could not be broken."
And that is why this is my one musical scene. Friends new and old, I hope you've enjoyed my contributions to this wonderful collaborative project, and thanks to Nanobi Movies for continuing this trend again so I could finally take a turn at it. I had a lot of fun just narrowing down what it was I wanted to talk about, because as a big fan of anime in general, there were tons of ideas I had just in that space of media. But since I usually work with that stuff and likely won't ever have many opportunities to speak about this very formative film for me again, I think Spirit was definitely the right choice. I will admit this is really only my first or so soiree into the world of video essays, so any and all constructive criticism about anything from how I structure my thoughts to even the visuals and editing will be very much appreciated. You will more than likely also notice that at the time of release, the only other project on this channel is a currently on hiatus fanfiction reading. See, my main channel is actually centered around content very similar to what Nando himself does, as on there I mostly do what if scenarios or sometimes even rewrites of mostly shonen battle manga / anime. While this one, Beyond Plus Ultraman, was always meant to be more so of a variety hour channel that would allow me to post what I want when I want, that wouldn't really be breaking from that mold. So if either of those sound interesting to you, or if in this short amount of time I have endeared myself to you somehow, it would absolutely mean the world to me if you would consider checking out my other content and possibly subscribing after you finish up the One Musical Scene playlist. You can find links to all my important stuff, YouTube or otherwise, in the description below. But with that said, please remember to take care of yourselves and the world around you. And as always, go beyond plus ultra. And I'll see you guys next time.